I mean, I feel good. I even look good. But there's something missing.
Yeah.
So everybody, hello, welcome to Free to Speak. This is your girl, Free Young. And this wonderful lady next to me has to be, her name is Dr. Nakesha, emphasis on the doctor, Dr. Nakesha Wilkes. She is a nurse practitioner for a hospice company. She is a instructor educator at the illustrious and beautiful and amazing Tuskegee University. TU. You know, she probably is part Jamaican because she has to be one of my friends who has all kind of jobs and always doing something to earn income. And she motivates me, although I still haven't done more than one. She motivates me like while I'm in my bed while she's doing her other jobs. But the one thing that I do love about her in her career, she is educating other nursing students, Black women and men in the nursing field or healthcare field. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, the importance of people who look like us, come from the same things that we've come from, like started from the bottom type stuff. Nakesha, I call her Key. She is one of those women. She is an advocate for Black women. She's an advocate for Black and brown people, educating yourselves. She has motivated me in more ways than I can even have time to even describe. She corrects all of my English and all of my words. So, but today she's not going to do it as bad. And if she does, if you hear like, look, on the side, that's just her trying to tell me the word that I used probably was not the right one. Or she sniffles like that or something. That's her way of telling me that it's not the right one. But that's why I have people in my life like that. We help each other, make each other better. So, Nakesha, is there anything that you want to start off with, kind of talking about yourself so everybody can get to meet the most fabulous friend of mine, Nakesha?
Hi, everybody. So most of what Free has said is correct. One thing that I think I want to make sure I put emphasis on for other people is that there were many setbacks to me achieving this journey. Many setbacks from the very beginning trying to become a nurse. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of those setbacks were things that I had control over and a lot of them weren't. Mm-hmm. So I just want to make sure that we mention to other people, if there's something that you want to achieve, don't let setbacks stop you from achieving it. Right. Especially if it's something that you want to achieve to better yourself. Right. But yeah, everything else that you said is pretty much right.
Because I'm awesome. So let me tell you guys how we first met. So we met at a hospice company, and I had been there for a few years prior to her getting there, and I had a health issue of myself, and so I had to get that taken care of, and I was out for a little bit. And a really good friend at the time, when I came back, Nakesha, was friends with her. And let me tell you, I think last episode, we talked about friendly. Now, this was during a time where I wasn't as friendly. So when I saw her associating with my friend at the time, it threw me. And I literally, like, when she was in there talking, they was like laughing and hee and ha ha. And I was trying to figure out what's so funny and where she come from, you know. So when she left, I asked my friend at the time, and I was like, who's this girl that all of a sudden you become buddy friend with? We don't know who this girl is. Can we trust her? You know, I went all the wrong things that, you know, I'm sure I gave off an unfriendly vibe to her at first, but I'm glad that we met each other in the way that we have, because along with Demetrius, Nakesha is one of those friends that is the most giving and loving person. She does it differently. They're kind of similar to me. It's just kind of straight from the hip, but she's kind of one of those friends that will hold you accountable. She'll check you. She doesn't hold no punches. And I think that's what me and her have in common. Now, if I say something to her, then that's when she gets all of a sudden so super sensitive. And
Not after today. Not after this sermon we just had about accountability.
Well, see, I know I work so mysterious, but that's the thing about her. Now, one thing we also experienced together, and we have a lot of common thought processes. So, like, we both believe in, if we've come and encountered some things in our life, helping out the people behind us, or I don't want to say underneath us, but that are younger than us. That's one of the things that we encourage. So one thing I'm going to bring up, I know it's going to be a little thing, but we always talked about how we encounter Black and brown women and the that we receive or that we've seen amongst our own women in healthcare. And from what I found out, it's in all kind of work. Like, we as women don't know how to come together. And when you see it, that was the thing that people really, when they saw it, it was awesome. When me, Nakesha, and our friend at the time, we worked at the same company. So when it came down to representing that company with other facilities and stuff, it was almost like a power move for other people to see 3 Black women come together and we can make something happen for the betterment of our company.
Something to add on to that is, when I first started working there, I was so impressed because there were Black women in leadership there. Mm-hmm. Because in most of the nursing jobs that I had, not only were there not Black women in leadership, there were no Black women,
right?
Period.
Right.
And the home health that I came from, there was one other Black woman that worked there, but everybody else was white.
Right.
And so for me to come there and see not one, not two, I think at that time we had African-American social workers. Mm-hmm. We had an African-American manager. We had an African-American supervisor. Then we
quality.
I mean,
we had a representation in everything.
Everywhere. And that also coincided with that being what I consider to be one of the first real nurse practitioner jobs that I was given, because I felt like I was looked over for so many of those. Mm-hmm. And so I think that leads me to say it's so important for us to take a seat at the table so we can bring others to the table, you know?
And not look at them like they're competition.
Right.
Because we were older.
There's room for all
of us. And I think that's the one thing, if you have to compare the two when it comes to races, that's the one thing about us Black and brown people we ain't really good at. We'll see somebody who is really good at their job, and as opposed to bringing them a part of your team to help your team, we look at them like a threat. And we want to be like undermine them or pull them down or not give them the job because we feel threatened by them, as opposed to just building a team. That's the thing about me, her, and the girl at the time. We were really good in our different fields. Like, I don't have a clinical license, but when it comes to administration and getting stuff done, being their legs to make sure paperwork was done and taken care of, I was great at that. When it came down to being a nurse practitioner, I don't care who you are. You don't talk my friend Nakesha. But at that part, and the other person at the time, when it came down to being the person in a role that needed to vouch for what we were trying to do in the community, she was very good about that, handling that, the operational side of the company that we were working for. So with the 3 of us together, we really succeeded. We got a lot of, people onto the services that they needed.
And we had a lot of people that didn't like that.
And we had a lot of people that did not like that. And they looked like us because they felt, as opposed to saying, look at these.
What it was.
Right. These 3 young Black, because me and Keisha are in our 30s. The other lady, I think she's in her early 40s. So we were still young women trying to figure it out. But the one thing that we all agreed on, me and Keisha and specifically, we agreed on helping each other, like doing what we need to do, putting our strengths together while we collectively work on our weaknesses. So let me tell you, I know that you teach at Tuskegee University. Tell me what you see. Like, what can you talk about and discuss? I know there's some things that we may be limited on, but
one thing that I think has been instrumental in my decision to stay with the university. I've been there 5 years, and I just transitioned into a full-time role 2 years ago, is the lack of Black and brown faces in healthcare. And that's what I tell my students. On the first day of class, I always have the brand new nursing students. So on the first day of class, I always go from student to student and ask them why they chose nursing and what type of nurse they want to be. And then we break it down into why it's important for them to be in those particular fields. This last class that I had, majority of them want to be labor and delivery nurses. And so I talked to them about how wonderful that is because we need advocates. Black women die at such a higher rate than any other race.
Right.
And it's not, I did some research on it. It's not related to level of education in Black women.
It's not.
It's not related to level of support that they may have. There is something that is being missed when Black women are giving birth.
Absolutely.
We're dying at a faster rate, I think it was like 4 times the rate of other people. And I think it's just, I've had experiences with my own labor and delivery that if I wasn't in a position to be my own advocate, it could have very well led to something different.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I tell them, you need to be advocates for these women. When they're telling you that something is wrong, listen, don't brush it off. Because I feel like that's what's happening is that
we've become desensitized and I think that's the problem in healthcare that I see, that we've become so desensitized as a human race that when someone tells you something, you automatically assume that it's something different. I remember just talking about my own experiences. I remember like with my last baby, like repeatedly having to go to the emergency room, and because I was having contractions, I had heavy children on top of the fact that I was very active with work and, moving the rest of the kids that I had around. And then I had, just some other health issues that caused my pregnancy to be difficult. So there were times where I would go into complete labor. And because I'm a C-section mother, shouts out to all the C-section moms, I was a C-section mother, there were certain things I just wasn't allowed to go into labor. It would just be more detrimental than good for me. And so I remember going to the emergency room one time, and this lady, literally a Black nurse, a Black female nurse, literally said out of her mouth that, because I think it was like a Sunday night. And so she literally came out of her mouth and said that nothing's wrong with me. I'm just trying to come to the emergency room because I'm trying to get an excuse not to go to work. And literally, I don't know, this wasn't for Lala, this was Lamar. And I remember like looking at her like, you don't think I got nothing else better to do? Like, I'm separated from my other 2 children. And
the nurse verbalized that.
And to me, and because I always made sure that when I went to the emergency room, I went to the hospital, I always had somebody else with me because I wasn't quite sure what they were going to do to me. I wasn't sure if they were going to put me under and I wouldn't be able to articulate for myself. So I needed someone that I could, could feel me. So if I looked, it was always mostly 95% of the time, it was my mother. And I remembered I can be able to look at her and say, she can look in my eyes and tell what needs to happen. We have to do that as a people, advocate for ourselves. Because I think it's just from burnout. We've just gotten through a pandemic, and I think a lot of nurses are burnt out. But let me just say, because you're burnt out doesn't mean that you have a right to be desensitized in your role, because you have human lives at stake. My son ended up having some serious health issues in the beginning of his life where we had to stay in the hospital a little longer. He had to stay in the little oven warmer, because the little bilirubin level was off, an incubator thing. And, we had a lot of issues with him and his health in the very beginning. Had it been something taken serious, now my doctor was amazing, but my OBGYN is a white lady. And, we've built a relationship and accountability with each other enough to, she knows that when I talk to her, I talk to her. But if you don't have somebody there advocating, and nursing professionals, when you hear someone advocating for them, don't take it. I'd rather you err on the side of caution. We used to say that all the time in the hospital. Let's err on the side of caution. Let's be wrong, but at least we did what we were supposed to do, right?
I told my mom the same thing when I got ready to have my my second child, my baby. I said, I need you to be here until this baby gets here, because, somebody's got to be here in the event that I can't speak, I can't say anything. And I said, and I need for you to not leave the room. Like, I was stressing to her how important it was that someone be there for me and not leave the room, because I was just that fearful of things not being taken seriously. And it's sad that I could be my own spokesperson and be my own advocate, but I've had those experiences and I've seen them. And so I said all that to say, that's what I was telling my nursing students. There are going to be women there that are not going to have that advocate. And so you have to be it if you're there. Don't be afraid to speak up. If you see a physician is doing something that's not right, or if you have a patient that's telling you that something is not right, be an advocate for each other, because a lot of times, like you say, black or white, a lot of times we don't have advocates. We need to be more hands-on with advocating for each other. And so that's one of the things that is so special to me about being at Tuskegee. I went to a PWI, predominantly white institution, for my undergraduate nursing degree. And those professors that I had were good, but in truth, it didn't matter to them if I finished, A. B, they couldn't prepare me for what I was going to encounter because they had not encountered it.
Right.
And so, that's one of the things that I try to tell my students. Yes, I'm hard on you because you know why?
It's hard out here.
It's hard.
It's hard.
And I know some of the things that you're going to encounter. And so it's a blessing to be able to be in that position with them, to be able to speak to them on a different level of, I know what you're going to encounter. So yes, I'm going to be hard on you. You can't be late to my class. You can't show up unprepared. You can't, have compassion.
Right.
You have to have those things because the world is just going to look at us differently when we get out there.
They do. I think too that when it comes to having advocates or being in a position where if someone doesn't have one, that you do that, I think that's just so important. And not just in the healthcare as far as taking care of somebody, but if you're behind the scenes, I'm a healthcare professional in administration. So if I see something that's not right, I still advocate because, sometimes if you've been in certain fields for a long time, like hospice, I was in hospice and home health. And so now I'm working still in geriatrics, but just in a nursing home facility. And the language is all kind of the same. I do have some nursing background for like a semester, I'm kind of finished. And I'm going to finish soon because she's going to put me on this live and say it in front of you guys. So we be celebrating that soon. I am like the poster child of start and stop, pick up, put down, pick up, put down. But at the end of the day, it's not to the one. If the race is not given to the swift, it's the one that endures. And so we're going to endure that. But this is why it takes good people to have your back. And this is kind of what we're talking about. Having people here to have your back and kind of can motivate you. But what I was saying, as far as if you're out there and you may not be a nurse, but you work in healthcare or you work in education or you work and you see that something is not being done right for someone. I think this is a good place for even educators, Black and brown educators, women and men educators. If you see children or a family that's less fortunate, don't allow people to treat them any kind of way because they're less fortunate. Children and the elderly don't necessarily control all parts of their lives. And so a lot of the reasons why they're in the ways that they are is because the generation in the middle, their children or whatever. And so we have to be mindful of that and not treat them a certain kind of way. I've seen people treat people horribly. We've had to go and clean up, family members, patients of ours because they have been on the floor in their feces and urine for extended periods of time, and family members did not think it necessary to come and see about them, and this is white and black people, you know what I'm saying? It's just having that heart of compassion, and I think as a people, we lose that. The one thing I love about our relationship as friends is that going back to competition, when you're immature, you'll look at people as your competition. And once I kind of grew up, because I don't think Keisha ever really changed who she was. She had really big hair. Let me talk about it. She had really big hair. It was very big, but it was gorgeous. But very big hair.
And you and our other friend, not you, but our other friend didn't like me on site.
She didn't like her on site. Now, I didn't necessarily say I didn't like her on site, but it was just, in my experiences, I had been given, or I guess trained not to trust women, Black women, that they didn't have your best interest at heart. And so that's why our relationship is so valuable to me, because it really is changed my thought frame, like my frame of mind about women and about having healthy relationships. And it's okay, because we do disagree
all the time,
like, at least a day, every day, at least once a day.
Many times. As a matter of fact, let's talk about the last phone conversations we had.
What was it about?
I don't know, but I just finally said, look, I'm finna let you go because you won one today. She was like, no, that's you. You won one.
She was. She was. And see, that's the thing. I don't feel slighted that she tell me, because sometimes I be on one. It could be a lot of stuff that's going on that she don't know, or she could be going through stuff that I don't know. And so we can feel when the other person is a little bit more scratchy and can't say nothing. I think she said, I can't say nothing to you, because can't say this, can't say that, can't say it. And I just go like, that's what's up, and I don't even, I used to say, nah, I'm straight, that's all you. But every once in a while, she'll get all right, and be done with it. It's important to have those kind of people in your life.
No judgment. That's one thing I think we talked about many years ago, is no judgment.
No judgment.
We can correct each other. We can say this is wrong, that's wrong. I remember recently telling you about a situation that I had going on that you told me it was wrong. And I know it was wrong, but there's still no judgment.
No judgment.
Don't love each other any less.
I didn't avoid her because I didn't want to talk to her or nothing like that. It's just, this my friend, and I even think I came back and tried to say, well, I hope I didn't play it far and encourage it. I'm so sorry. And although she told me that wasn't the case, it's still, for me, I was like, oh my God, did I just let my friend think that this was cool, whatever? Yeah. We just had that kind of love for each other. We had to grow. We had to grow in like how we relate. When I started dating my husband, I like completely had to get checked by her and Demetrius on how to still be their friend.
Oh yeah.
And have, my relationship that I was cultivating at the time. So it's just good to have that. It's really, really, really good to have that. It's good to have people to have your back, because in this world that we live in, although we want to say that we should all just get along, like who said that? Rodney King or Al Sharpton?
Rodney King.
Can we all, like, I'm feeling you. It's still,
yes.
Brother, Rodney King, or family and members of Rodney King. Like, I feel you when it comes to like the thought process of how we all should just get along. But the one thing that I'm coming to terms with is that we just won't. As long as the sun rises and the moon sets and Christ has not come back, this is just the thing that we'll have to deal with. We will have to deal with racial disparities.
Let's use that as a segue
into, maybe I should use words like segues.
Let's use that as a segue into a discussion about mental health.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I had thought about, that I wanted to talk about in this discussion, and how overlooked it is.
It is. Can I be transparent about both of us?
Sure.
So me and her also deal with mental health issues. I deal with anxiety and depression, and she deals with anxiety and depression as well. We do med checks on each other. Like, did you take your meds today? Did you do that?
And then look, the thing about it is so crazy is because, yes, I took mine. Did you take yours?
Man, it's the check, but it's the one of, I think once we became open about what we needed to do, and we didn't have to be what has been set over us, which these strong Black women, which means we had to take everybody else's bullshit. We had to take, raise our children. We had to work full time. We got to do this. We got to go grocery shopping. We got to cook. We got
just talking to somebody about that the other day, about how everything that is expected of us is impossible.
It's impossible to do it all by yourself
and do it well,
and still maintain a frame of mind that you don't eventually snap.
There's too much.
It's too much. It's really too much. And, some of it you can say, for some people, you may have brought these situations on yourself because you didn't make good decisions. I could say some of the things that I'm dealing with on a mental level, I brought them on myself because I just didn't listen. But now that we're here, it's very important to be open about your mental health. Because if you're not open about it, eventually it becomes open. Like we see, situations where people have literally taken other people's lives in the open. That's when family members and folks start learning, oh, they had a mental health issue. No, we people in the community should have been aware of that before. Family members should have had their hands on these individuals before. We don't do those things because we don't like to talk about
even something as minor as us talking about hating each other in the workplace.
That's a mental health. That's a mental health issue.
It's a mental health thing.
It's somewhere you were traumatized to not by a person that looked like you. And so now what you do is I dislike you before you find something to dislike me about. It's almost like I'm gonna get you and feel some kind of way, put your name out there in an ugly kind of way before you try to turn around and see something about me. Or
that's someone who's insecure,
right,
or in their own school,
right,
and really needs to do some self-work,
right. Or you could feel like that person is where you probably should be, and because you're not there, as opposed to saying, hey, let me just attach myself to you like Velcro, and then we can just, we can figure it out together. Now I'm going to dislike you. Like Nakesha's came in our friendship with degrees. Your girl's been trying to get there since before we met and today to current. But I don't feel less than. My whole friend is sitting here with a whole doctorate in nursing. I don't feel no kind of way. I just be like, Lord, just let it flow over through my veins. One day. Because one day I'm going to do it. And I promise you, one day we'll have a full live episode of Free to Speak where I will talk to you guys about the struggle of how I made it over just to get my bachelor's. It's not a problem of education. It's not a problem of me obtaining because I have a 4.0 GPA every time I do it. It's just a matter of life happens.
And I can't get hold to it before it happens. I cannot get hold to it before it happens. I find out way out there. I'm like, you ain't said about school in a while.
I just try to keep it to myself while I work through things. But when I don't watch my mental, I will get overwhelmed. And then in my mind, decide what takes precedence. And 99.9% of the time is education. Because I have children. I work full time, and the time that I was, I think not this last time I started school, but the time before that, I was in a really bad marriage, and that consumed my life. And then I found myself in a bad situation that consumed my life. And so I'm heavy in church. I'm heavy when it comes down to praise and worship, writing music. I have a child that also has ADHD. And so something always falls by the wayside. And that's always it, because I feel like eventually I'll pick it up. I went from having 12 classes left. I think I'm down to like 6 classes. But I'm going to get through it. I'm going to get it.
And I'm going to tell you something that I had to learn with that, because I can remember thinking that there was so much stopping me and blocking me from finishing even my bachelor's degree 15 years ago. There was just money issues. There was issues with me not passing this class, not passing that class, not passing boards, having boyfriend issues. Mm-hmm. There was just so many things. And then once I went back to school, then I had a child. So of course that changes the whole dynamic of everything. Trying to make sure that she has what she needs and that she knows that I'm present for her. But one thing that I want to tell you and anybody else out there that's listening, one thing that I found in therapy was that when you have all these different things going on, the only thing you can do is take everything one thing at a time. Not even 1 week, not 1 month, not what all I have to do coming up. And that's how I live my life to this day. I carry around a calendar with me and I look at what do I have to sit today? When we finish this, I finish Sunday. Okay. Now I'm starting to look at what do I have to do Monday. I can't worry about Tuesday. I can't worry about Wednesday.
Right.
One day and one thing at a time. And that's how you achieve your goals.
Right.
One day, one thing at a time. That's what I tell my students.
She's so smart. That's my nice way, because we're standing right here. But I'm like, I know that. When she tells me the right thing, I'm like, I know, but you're not listening or whatever. We end up in full thing. But that's important to know. One thing at a time, one task at a time, one day at a time. I remember her telling herself that while she was in school, basically her discussing all of her assignments and stuff that she had to get done. And I don't know how it is, Nicole, because she calls me Nicole, because we met in a corporate setting. No, remember I was talking to you guys about how I have several names. Okay, so corporate setting is Nicole. So that's how she tried to be funny and say free earlier, but I know it's free to speak. So Nicole, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Yeah, so we use those moments to encourage each other, and hopefully you guys are listening to what's being said. Like, I think we were talking about mental health and how common it is, and there's nothing wrong with you. Absolutely nothing wrong with you if you feel anxious, if you feel depressed, if you feel like you need a therapist, if you feel like you need to talk to someone, if you feel like you need a medication. I need my medication like someone with diabetes needs their medication. There's nothing wrong with that. And so one thing that I want us to stop doing is stop making it a taboo. Yeah. Something open that we can discuss and we can talk about, and we can say, I need this additional assistance. Yes, I'm thankful for my family for their prayers. Yes, I pray for myself, but I also need this additional assistance. And it's okay. I mean, if you can look at some of your family members, a lot of times when I think about trauma that may be passed down in my family, I realize that a lot of it is it's unaddressed mental health issues. And so in order for me to not carry that to my children, I don't want to give it to my children. I have to address it within myself first. And so that's just something that I wanted to make sure that I, let people know with regards to, you have to be mentally well to be physically well. Mental health affects physical health. Physical health affects mental health. So you can be in the best physical shape in the world, but if you're in poor mental health, it's still not going to do anything to increase your lifespan, to increase your longevity, to increase what you're doing and how you're doing it. Mental health is just as important. One of the things, I don't know if I talked to you about, but I said I want to make myself be fit and focused by 40. No, you're not at 40. I have a whole year and a half left. Okay. Fit and focused by 40. And that is me addressing my physical health and my mental health. I have been in a phase, like Nicole was saying, where money was all important to me. I just wanted to work and make this much money so that I could pay this off and pay that off and buy a house and buy a car. And all that's great. But at the end of the day, none of that can be taken with me. The only thing that's going to increase my longevity, my happiness, and the spirit that I bring to my family is my health. Right. So that's super important. It is. And it's something that it's almost like my pastor and my dad was talking about having those conversations as a family. Like my kids probably get super embarrassed, but I ask them. I have grown to, when you're dealing with mental health, you don't always do everything right as a parent. And so when I had my children, I was, especially my oldest, I suffered from postpartum depression. But my depression goes as far as anxiety. Was you treated effectively? No. I didn't start getting treatment until my adulthood, because I remember as a kid, because I was traumatized. My first traumatic experience was when I was 5 years old. And so from 5 until my adulthood, maybe a few years ago, my anxiety and depression was always dealt with my either being sleepy or I sleep all the time. When I wasn't trying to be in Christ, I drank all the time. I tried to find relationships that can cultivate that type of atmosphere that I was used to being in. You find all types of things. And so in that, I lacked the capabilities of being my head, my stomach rather. Might lack the capabilities of being an effective mother. But when I learned, I tried to teach my children. And so in that, I experienced where I literally reach out to them and like, hey, y'all good? You good? You talking? Anything you need to talk about? How was school today? And teenagers do that. Good. But I like to ask questions. You can call me 50 Cent because I'm going to ask 21 questions. So I'm like, okay, like, what do you mean by good? What actually happened today? How did this person, if they tell me something, how did that make you feel? get them in the habits of expressing themselves, because I would say from 5 to 18, 5 is when I first was molested, and no one knew from 5 until I turned 18. Nobody knew. I didn't tell anybody, and then I was flipping out at 18, and that's when my mom was like, what the heck is going on with you? Now, between 5 and 18, I was an angry little girl. I fought people. I was like, don't come for me unless I send for you. As a matter of fact, you ain't even got to come for me, because I'm going to come at you. Like, you know, I was just an angry individual, not a friendly person, not a nice person. I was in church, but, you know, I did what I was supposed to do because my mom was going to make me go. My parents were so involved in their, like, my dad was abusive. My biological dad was abusive to my mother and to myself and my brother. So I had that trauma, and I can just go in my life like by the month, every month, like something, all this trauma packed up on top of each other. And so now what I try to do is have those conversations that we as Black and brown people don't like to have. And even some way you can unpack it. That's the only way you can unpack it. You have to talk about it. You have, like, now I don't have shame about talking about what happened to me. Now, some of my family members who did not know, they may feel some kind of way of knowing that I was molested by somebody in my family. You know, not my mom's side of my family, but my biological dad's side of the family. Some people may feel some kind of way about that. But if everybody go back in their minds, they've had those experiences too. My biological dad was molested by somebody in his family. And he shared that information. I'm not making that up. But what we don't do is we don't talk about it and make you feel like it's okay to talk about it. Right. So my dad is dealing, that's why I don't even really have hate for my dad. You know what I'm saying? Because he was dealing with something that should not have happened to him. And in the process became a husband and a father.
And had not
unpacked. We parents have to unpack. And then healthcare professionals, we have to be able to, when you see something hasn't been unpacked in whatever capacity, there are people that I work alongside, and I know that you work alongside. You can almost tell that they dealing with something, they just ain't really unpacked it yet. So they have this built up tension. Have compassion for that person. Be a safe place for that person. That's what because other folks ain't gonna understand it. We can understand if it's a room of us Black and brown people and it's a whole lot of noise. It don't sound like a whole lot of noise to us. It just sounds like a good time. You know, we can tell the difference between arguing and good time. Everybody can. And so they're not going to be able to relate in those situations, just like we're not able to relate with them in the other races, in their situations. We have to be that for each other. We have to. That's how you get to knowing other people and being really good friends, because me and her have that. She had a really good relationship with her biological dad. I didn't. But I don't think like she's better than me, and she doesn't think that I'm better than her. She's better than me because she had a really good relationship with her biological dad, and I didn't.
Because conversely, there are other relationships that you had that were great, that I had that were not so great.
Right.
And, you know, and all those things form who we are.
Yeah.
All those things form the people that we are. And we can't change where we come from. We can't change our parents. We can't change how we were raised, but we can choose to do it differently. Mm-hmm. You know, we can take great things from our childhood because we both have good things that we like. I was talking to my dad recently. There are some great things that I take.
Shout out to Odie. I love Odie. He made me laugh.
There are some great things that I take from my dad that I take to my children. Mm-hmm. And there are also some things I wish he had done differently. And I told him that just the other day. I said, one thing that I'm going to do differently that you didn't do was children don't belong in adult matters. Mm-hmm. They shouldn't have to deal with adult matters. Mm-hmm. And so children deal with children's matters. Mm-hmm. You know, I can talk to my kids on a level, hopefully, of what's going on in your life, but it is inappropriate for me to place them into my adult matters.
Absolutely. And I think that sometimes our parents, like we didn't know. We don't know. I don't know what the heck I'm doing from one day to the next. I just know I have 4 children, sometimes 5, and this weekend I had 8 kids that I have to make sure they are taken care of, they are fed, they are cleaned,
and they're emotionally well.
They're emotionally well, so I have to be emotionally available for all of them. And some of you guys know my children, some of you don't. But I mean, from just this weekend, we had 17, from the ages of 17 down to 6 in our house. We had 7 boys and 1 girl. I had to, my girl wouldn't stay with my mother just because it was a lot of new introducing. And you just got to kind of feel stuff out. You just don't know it, so you don't take anything to chance. But during the day, she would come and visit with them. And it was just so many ways that I was like, okay, looking and unpacking. And my husband, who hasn't been given all the opportunities or didn't even feel like he wanted to have that opportunity. Yes, see that little sniffle she just did? That was a correction.
It wasn't. It wasn't. It was an agreement when he said didn't feel like you wanted. I would just say didn't take all these.
Yeah, it's a combination of both. Didn't want it at certain times, and then when the opportunity was there, did not take advantage of those opportunities. But because my husband himself, is dealing with some things in a mental, I'll let him speak to it when he has his time as well. But he has his mental health issues that he's dealing with. But now that he's in a different headspace, he longs for those relationships with his children now. He's reaching out to all of his kids and grandchildren, because I'm a teacher. I'll reach out to his grandchildren as well. And it comes from, I'm doing what Keisha did for me and what somebody's done for her, and that's it. Once I find that this works, I want to spread it to everybody. So let's communicate. My husband he'll tell you quick, I'm good about, let's communicate, let's talk, let's not hold on to things. We as a people have to stop holding on to things. This generation after generation after generation of racism and oppression that we've dealt with as a community, first off, we have to stop doing those oppressive things to each other. First and foremost, I always tell people, you teach people how to treat you. If I'm knocking your block off because you stand on the corner and you got a all blue outfit, then I can't expect someone else of another race to come and treat me any better, because we don't value our own lives. We don't take care of each other. We have to own that part of us. Now, was it our fault that we came over here? Absolutely not. It's not our fault that we came over here. Was it our fault that we were whipped and beaten and spit on and kicked and raped? And was that our fault? No, it was not our fault as a community, as a people. But the one thing that we have to do is that even in those situations, you still have to find a place somewhere within you that your struggle now becomes something that you stand on top of. My mom gives this analogy about trash. All the things that have happened in your life, you can envision it like a pile of trash. We can either dive in the middle of that trash, or we can use that as a stepping stone and choose to do differently. I'm not going to, although people, and we live in the South, she live in Alabama, I live in Georgia. And although people want to use our color against us and whatever they think, lack of education, or because I just let you lie to me makes you think that I'm okay with what you say to me. No, I just, you pick your battles. But what we have to do is learn how to use those things for our betterment. You got to be a student in your craft. Learn what you see works. No matter who's doing it. I've learned in corporate America what works. And I just do it regardless. And I don't get all up in a tizzy about it if it doesn't work the way I want it to work. You use it to your advantage so you can achieve for your family's sake. I can't fight a battle for the whole people of all black and browns. But what I can do is make sure I learn what I need to learn, pass it on to my children. And then that's how the, the effects or the ripples from that continues on and can eventually take over a whole nation of people. You feel what I'm saying? You start off small. If I'm doing that in my house, Key doing it in her house, you guys are doing it in your house, then by the time our kids get older, we've now affected a whole community in a positive light. But if we keep looking at each other as competition. I'm going to shoot you down for you shoot me down. Then we cannot expect any kind of change. If we don't learn that, if you see a woman coming in there that's pregnant, and yeah, she may have 40 inches of long, black, gorgeous hair, does that mean that you need to tell her to stop laying on her back? I've heard this. Stop laying on your back and having all these babies, and you trying to get, because I used to process Medicaid and food stamp applications. And I remember hearing people at these places that work talk about other women and the fact they need to get off their back. And they come in here with I remember this one lady came in and she had a purse, Louis purse, and she was applying for food stamps. And that person who took her information felt like, who are you? You come in here in Louis Vuitton. I don't have a Louis Vuitton bag and I work here. But what if that's a possession that she just got? What if it was her grandmother? What if left it to her? What if? At the end of the day, her Louis Vuitton is probably the best thing she can pull together just so she can feel like she's somebody.
That's not a scenario that we had at the hospital once. There was this African-American nurse that was working there, and there was a sickle cell patient that was what they call a frequent flyer.
Mm-hmm.
Came in and out of the hospital a lot, and she was annoyed by the fact that he was coming in so much. She labeled this child a drug seeker because when he came in sickle cell crisis, he would say, this medication is the only one that's going to get me out of the crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And so she labeled him as a drug user, drug seeker, and that his pain wasn't real. And that disturbed me so bad that I pulled her to the side and I said, listen, sickle cell is a real disease. It's a real disorder, and it is very painful. And he knows what's gonna work because he's been in and out of the hospital his whole life with sickle cell crisis. Doesn't mean that he's a drug seeker. He's trying to get out of this sickle cell crisis that he's in. And for you to be a Black woman and for him to be a young Black man, you need to advocate for him because everyone who comes in a sickle cell crisis looks like us.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think that, imagine what the other people think.
Who's going to advocate for him? And then he messed around sickle cell. I've had a classmate of mine, and I want to say his brother, but I know his brother passed away. I'm just not sure what his brother passed away from. But right after that, not too long after that, he passed away from sickle cell, like crisis, a real cell crisis. It is a real thing. They know, it's something that they deal with on the regular, so they know. We have to advocate for each other.
We have to.
Because we either advocate for each other or we advocate for others. Mm-hmm. Either way, we advocate. Mm-hmm. We advocating. Let's advocate for something that's going to make us better as a people.
And that's a ripple effect. Once I sat her down and talked to her about it, I realized that she was spouting what she had heard from the Caucasian nurse who trained her. Mm-hmm. And so when I encouraged her to look at it differently, now you can take it and you can educate someone else the next time you're with that Caucasian nurse or another African-American nurse that has that thought process, then you can pass that education on.
Right.
And eventually maybe we'll all understand.
Right. I think that we have to start using what God has given us, which is for you guys who are nurses and stuff, it's your education and this compassion for people. We have to do some soul searching, people. Let's do that. Let's do some soul searching where we look within ourselves and do this daily. My brother was talking about earlier today, like you have to crucify your flesh daily, self-evaluate daily. Why do you do what you do? Why are you in healthcare? Are you there to make a change? Are you there for $1? Are you there for, what are you there for?
I tell my students, there are certain fields that you have to have a heart for.
You do.
And if you're here because someone else wants you to be here, you're in the wrong field.
Anything dealing with human services. So that is government assistance. That's healthcare. That's what else, Key? DFACS. That's
social work.
Social services.
Education.
Any type of human services. Public safety. Let's not even get started on that because I don't think we have enough time to discuss it. We as a people,
be in it for the right reason.
You have to be in it for the right reason. You cannot be in it because you were bullied as a kid, and so now you in public safety, so you could take out every person that looks like the person that bullied you. you could take them out and hurt them and harm them because you feel some kind of way. I'm going to talk about it because we're going to talk about this right now. That, what's the baby name? The boy that got killed. Tyree Nichols. This man was severely beaten. And we're just going to death. We're going to talk about this small thing, small topic for a small amount of time. Because I know me and her can be here all day because I have both. I got to eat. And we're hungry. But I just want to say this about it. Because I think it came out later that this was a personal issue.
But it was obvious to me from watching the video that it was a personal issue.
Right. A personal issue. Running a stop sign. As a matter of fact, I got a ticket the other day. I got to pay for running the red light. I didn't mean no harm. I was on the phone with you. I said, Keisha, I think I ran the light.
You got a letter in the book?
I got a letter in the book. But as a black person, something as small as running a stop sign, not small, I'm sure, I understand the danger that it poses. I get all of that. But something like that could cost me my life.
If you survive running that stop sign, you shouldn't die from being caught running.
No. And I think the sensitized portion of it is that there are some people who don't have to worry about that. So they don't understand. And they don't think it's a real worry. And it's a real worry for me. We have black husbands. My husband has a past that he's been rehabilitated from, that I'm not, saying I'm proud of him in every part of his rehabilitation. I have black boys, I have black girls, you have black boy and black girls, and that's a concern of ours every single day.
And my son is on autism spectrum disorder.
Yes.
Sometimes he understands, sometimes he doesn't. So that's a huge worry for me.
My son is ADHD, and his processing of what you're saying to him, especially when you're screaming, if you want my child to freeze up, scream at him. Because he's processing not just what you're saying, he's processing why you're screaming at him. He's processing, what did I do it's 20 million things that are processing in his mind while someone is screaming at them. And if they would do what they did to Tyree Nichols, to my son, who has issues, or your baby, who has issues, those black men should have been advocating, should have been holding their friend responsible. And saying, this is not what we're here for. We're here to protect and serve. Beating somebody up because they are dating your baby's mother, which you were no longer dating, which is a story, and causing your other brothers, where's the accountability? This woman lost her son because her son was dating someone else's child's mother. Are you serious?
And he has a child.
That's
going to grow up
without a father.
Which is going to lead to all types of issues.
Right. Traumatic issues.
How much support he has from other family members, the fact that his child is missing his father is going to lead to issues.
That's because we as a people, we will never, ever, 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 ever get to the place where we will be treated as fair as we think we should be until we start treating ourselves. How can a person respect you as a person, as an individual, if it'd be hard for you guys to respect me if you saw me cutting myself or hurting myself or smacking myself? Y'all would say, Free, Nicole, Farisha, Nikki, Nat, Punton, what's going on? You need some help. Let me help you. You know what I'm saying? But if I'm treating myself poorly, I cannot expect someone else to treat me right. Because I feel obviously low for myself. We as a black people have to start really embracing who we are. And then once we get to that place of whatever you can call greatness or whatever, we don't take that greatness as a cloak of I'm better than the other black folks because I'm not like them. No, what we do is we reach back and we help. And that person will reach back and help. And then as a community, we can advocate for each other. We can actually protect and serve and not use each other as body bag, as punching bags because we feel some kind of way. Like we get to a place like public safety, they're almost like a fraternity, almost like
they were the Scorpion gang,
right?
Whatever they were, and they had multiple complaints and multiple issues. And I even found myself watching the news saying how outspoken the news anchors were about this being wrong. as compared to other issues of police brutality when they're waiting to find out all the facts and they're waiting to find this out and they're waiting to find it out and waiting and making sure that they have a jury of their peers. But conversely, your dad mentioned this morning, why weren't we out marching about it? Because it's still police brutality. You know, whether it's a white person on a black person, to me, it's worse.
It's worse. Because you should know. We don't. Like, we have a way of communicating and not even opening our mouths. You know what I'm saying? Like, how many examples have we seen out there? Like, we can communicate without ever opening our mouth. We can know what someone is saying, especially back in the day, when we wearing masks and stuff. You can know what I'm saying just by looking at my eyes. I know there's certain things I just told y'all about earlier today that she does. She don't have to open her mouth, and I know how she feels. She can see my face and see if I'm feeling the situation I'm in or the scenario I'm in, or if I'm really ready to go home, or if I'm sleepy, or I'm hungry. You know, so that's what we have to start doing for each other. I think I'm really hopeful that in this conversation that we're having with you guys, that you will take to heart what we're saying. And just to kind of summarize what we're saying, what we want to do is those of us who are in positions of power, positions of authority, positions of higher education obtained, positions of more responsibilities in whatever service. I think we started off in healthcare, but just to sum it up all together, human services as a whole, where you actually have to look out for another human being. Let's start being advocates. And that doesn't mean you turn a blind eye because you see a white person being treated poorly by somebody or taken advantage of. And I'm not going to turn a blind eye to that, because people are people. I'm a Christian, so I believe in God loves me and he loves his people, so I have to love his people. You know what I'm saying? That's what we believe as godly women. Like, we believe in loving God's people. You cannot. The Bible is clear on that. Jesus Christ said it. He said, how can you love me who you've never seen, but you hate your brother who you see every day? How can we do that? It's because somewhere in there, we have taken God completely out of our thought process. We are literally just like going about the motions, and we are every single day are becoming desensitized as human beings.
And that's terrible. We can't become desensitized.
We cannot. Please do not become desensitized. To whom much is given, much is required.
Much is required. And there are people, you may not be in a position, quote unquote, to make a difference, you think, but all of us can make a difference.
Every single one.
If you have a voice, you have a mind, you can speak up and advocate for someone. And that is what I want you to think about as far as to whom much is given, much is required, because that's something that you've been given by God. You've been given a voice. You've been given a mind. So if you see something that's wrong, you see something that's incorrect, you see something that needs to be addressed, do so. If you have the ability to use your voice, use it.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you're here with me today, friend. I love her so.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Free to Speak. Thank you guys for joining us today. Please be reminded, if you want to be a co-host like my sister friend right here, Dr. Nakesha Wilkes, please feel free to email me at free2speakfts@gmail.com. That's FREE, the number 2, SPEAKFTS@gmail.com. Also, please make sure that you go and follow me, like, subscribe, whatever the things are that these kids be saying on Instagram and Facebook. It is Free to Speak Podcast. If you have any questions that you want to ask me, please feel free to message me, and I will try to. You know, that's the thing I love about this show. I could just be who I am, which means my earring comes out from time to time. But you know, hey, we'll get there when we get there. But anyways, I've enjoyed you guys. I pray that you guys found something or heard something that you can use. Just remember to always do right by people. It's hard to say you love God and don't love his people. And when it comes to love, think about the most important example of love that we've ever seen or heard about. And that was Jesus Christ down on the cross for our sins. He did not sin, but he died on the cross because he knew that we would, and he wanted to give us a passage to his Father in heaven. So we thank you for watching. We pray that you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day, and until next time, deuces.
Come on.